Coming up on this week's episode, Paige Crossingham.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of gyms in my time. You are a co-owner of The Yard at Mooloolaba.
Yeah.
That place is pumping. It's unmatched to what I've ever experienced.
But the Yard Gym brand kind of brings together incredible training, connection, and a really big emphasis on community.
So taking a step back as well, though, you had some pretty serious health issues.
I did. My situation shows that it doesn't discriminate. I was healthy, I was fit, I was young. I was just incredibly unlucky, which is just crazy. Life isn't that bad. Just look after yourself and control what you can control.
Do you think you're better off because of it?
Yeah, absolutely. If I do this for the rest of my life, I know I'm doing something well for myself and for the people around me, and I will always wake up and be like, I'm so lucky to do this.
Have you ever walked into a place and instantly felt different? Like something in the air just worked, the energy, the people, the vibe. At the Yard Gym in Mooloolaba, that feeling is real. And at the heart of it is Paige Crossingham. In this episode, we meet the woman behind one of the Sunshine Coast's most vibrant fitness communities, a place where elite athletes train alongside 70-year-olds, where there's no ego, just energy. But Paige's story goes far beyond kettlebells and community. At 24, while working in the fitness industry, she was diagnosed with the triple-negative breast cancer, an aggressive and rare diagnosis for anyone her age. What followed was surgery, chemo, and an unwavering belief that her life could be still lived on her terms. From facing life's most harrowing challenges to creating a space where people feel seen, supported, and strong, Paige's story is one of resilience, purpose, and a refusal to let adversity define her. This is more than a story about fitness or business. It's about building something real from the inside out. Welcome to a conversation with someone who moved a mountain and then built a gym on top of it. Let's get into it. Paige Crossingham.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on to the
Thank
show.
you for having me.
As I said, spoke on off air, I've been to a lot of gyms in my time. You are a co-owner of The Yard at Mooloolaba.
Yeah.
And that place is pumping. And the vibe, the culture of the people that are in there, it's unmatched to what I've ever experienced. I want to know how. I want to know your story as to how in fitness generally, but also then how when you made the leap of going, I want to be ownership. I want to have ownership in this thing as an idea, and the risks involved with that, and then also culturally, how the hell you've done this.
Yeah, we get that a lot, and I mean, I wish I knew the answer, and it probably just stems from the person I am and the people that we have around us. But yeah, I suppose to start, I've always been in this industry. I managed gyms, high-performing gyms for the past, 6 years. And over time, I learnt from the people around me. I grew a really awesome network on the coast and within the fitness industry. And I started to get to a point where I was like, I know I do a really good job. I know I can create great connections. I need to start doing this for myself. And, as a management position, you do reap the rewards, but you don't. People think you own it, but you don't. And you can't say, this is mine, this is what I've built, because there's always someone there who you're doing it for. And I suppose that had to get me to where I am now. But, I suppose I made that decision probably a year and a half ago where I was like, I can't keep doing this. I either need to move out of this completely and do something else, because I'm falling out of love with it because it isn't mine, and I know that I could have more creative freedom, or I could do so much more if it was mine, and I could keep the passion behind me to keep doing a really good job for the people that I was looking after. And I suppose being lucky enough to be in that circle, I met who are our business partners, and they obviously saw that in me as well, and were a part of the space I used to be in and saw what it was, and they knew that us together could create a really amazing space within the Yard Gym brand, and especially on the Sunshine Coast. So yeah, true credit to them as well. They kind of brought my dreams alive and have let me, kind of run with it, and it is what it is now.
How would you describe the Yard as a brand, or the service offering? How does that differ to other gyms?
I suppose in terms of training, it's top tier training. It's for general population, but it also caters to those people, like yourself, who used to be elite athletes. We have people in there who are training to be elite athletes, but we also have, mums, with kids, people coming from injury, our oldest members, nearing 70 in his 70s. And it's not, I would say it's probably not ego driven. It's not intimidating, but you still go and know that you're doing something good for yourself. It's purpose built, it's structured. It's not go into a room and do 50 different exercises and leave. And although you're breaking a sweat, you're not really getting anywhere. So the Yard Gym brand kind of brings together incredible training, connection, and a really big emphasis on community as well, which is why I think the Yard Gym brand is so successful and why we've been able to kind of take off on the Sunshine Coast.
I feel like from the limited experience that I've had with you, you're so authentically you. And I think that has to say a lot for the success of the place. But I think I agree. I think that it's the lack of ego in that room, despite the fact that there is significant varying levels of ability. I still don't understand how you've been able to do that.
Yeah, I think I always say it's like people attract like people. And like you've said, like I'm not pretending to be something else. I believe that if I can show who I am and share, what I've been through, what I do, I get in amongst the people, and I think you have to learn from them as much as you teach. I've been so incredibly lucky. Obviously, I'm in this position because of the connections and what I've built before. And I think that, showing up as yourself, not above anyone else, getting in there with the people, you start to attract people like that. And I think we've been so lucky that, naturally you weed out the people that don't fit and you keep the people that do. And we're very lucky to have some of the people in there that, Dan Clarkson, for example, he's in there. He's training to be an elite high rocks athlete. He grabs some of the older members in there and takes them on a session with him, and we're lucky to have people like that. And he's just one of hundreds that we have in there like that. Yeah.
Take me back then when you opened the doors and through that journey, because I'm there now seeing it as a fully fledged sort of business. But early days, how did it look?
Yeah, early days we skyrocketed. We sold out in our foundation memberships in the first 15 minutes. And I think that speaks a lot to the Yard Gym as a brand. They did an incredible launch for us. They do that as a brand for their franchisees, but also having the connections that I do in the community. I had people that I trained 7 years ago come back to this gym because they knew that I was the one that was there and they were looking for something new, and they knew our business partners, they knew my partner, and early days we were blown away, and it's just kind of snowballed from there. And I think only now I can feel the true sense in the community about the Yard Gym, Mooloolaba's this, it's awesome. There's only good words that I hear about it, and I'm obviously biased, but it's great.
And then what's the plan going forward?
Plan going forward is to just keep growing.
Has growth been, other than the explosion at the start, relatively consistent?
Yeah, it has been relatively consistent. You always have those ebbs and flows, over the Christmas, New Year period, everyone reassesses their finances. Winter, everyone gets a little bit demotivated. But it has been pretty consistent, which we've been super grateful for. So we're just trying to continue to give as much as we can to our community. We have turf games coming up. We need to keep planning things to give back so that we're not just mediocre and like the gym next door.
Yeah.
So we try and do as much as we can in those little 1%ers. So the goal is to get it even more pumping and thriving and just take a step back at that point and just look at what we've created.
No plans on emulating what you've been able to do? Because it is a franchise model, but there's no guarantees there.
Yeah.
And yes, they may do a great launch, but unless you're committing yourself and doing all the things on the ground for a long period of time, the day ins and day outs, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So you've got some sort of incredibly successful strategy or formula that you've been able to do. Has it crossed you guys' minds in terms of starting another one?
I've always been of the opinion if you can do it well, you don't need to do it twice. I've seen it before, I've worked for someone who opened multiple of the same franchise, across the coast, and You think that, oh, it's doing so well here, it's going to do so well there. I'm good at this, I can keep going, but it just kind of dilutes your product, dilutes your time.
It dilates you. Yeah, great.
Can't be in two places at once. And I think we are so successful because we are in there all the time and people see it. And if you're not, they're like, where have you been, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I wouldn't see me wanting to do anything other than where we are and just make it incredible.
That's such a mature position in terms of, I listened to a podcast on the weekend about, I guess, that in the sense that it's about pruning, that they were talking this analogy of pruning and how that you get your main branches is where you're wanting to go and that's where all the energy is being forced into. But then naturally you'll get offshoots, which is the distractions, which is maybe the next place. And the art, and that's all that is doing is taking away from the main direction. Yeah. And so if you prune the offshoots and you keep forcing the energy towards the main one, which is Mooloolaba, then the growth is going to be much stronger. Yeah.
Admittedly, I need to get better at productivity and all that stuff, you know. So that's where I can see us getting better at that so that.
Being more efficient, you mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
As a business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I pull myself in every direction, you know. Delegating, getting staff to come on board that help me do what I do. Because obviously when I'm there doing that, you kind of want to at that stage, but.
You almost have to.
Yeah.
Can't.
Yeah, I can't really step away.
Do you look back at already and you're proud of what you've been able to achieve?
Yeah, I'm one of those people who's really bad at doing that, but absolutely I am. Yeah, this is special. It's different to anything I've ever been in before, and it's incredible, and I do remind myself of that every day, and the people around me do as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
So taking a step back as well, though, it hasn't been always in the fitness industry, or certainly when you were younger, you had some pretty serious health issues.
I did. Yeah. So when I was 24, I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, which was crazy at the time.
Can you step me through the lead up to being diagnosed?
Yeah, it was crazy time. It was over the Christmas New Year period. So the length to diagnosis was so drawn out. It was like a 4 to 5 week process. I was just like a Saturday afternoon and I kind of brushed over my chest and I felt like a lump. And I'm super health conscious. I'm at the doctor the next day. So I was like, I need to go and get this checked. And I did. And, on that appointment was the first time I heard the phrase that I would hear for the next 5 weeks, which was, you're so young, you'll be so fine. We'll just have a look anyway. And, I had appointment, ultrasounds, biopsy after biopsy. And, they're still telling me you're young, you'll be fine. And, you want to believe them, but, deep down I knew that I wasn't fine. And then it was my mum and my partner, they share a birthday. And it wasn't until January 8, I'd gone through Christmas and New Year and whatever, that I went to a specialist appointment still thinking I was having more investigation. And she was like, do you understand what's going on? And I was like, oh, no, I'm getting some more tests. And she was like, oh, well, no, I'm sorry to tell you, but you've got breast cancer. And I was sitting with my mum at the time and the specialist, and, my mum doesn't cry often. And she just started crying and I was crying, and I just said to her, the first thing I said, I was like, Mum, I'm going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Yeah. And that kind of, it changed everything that day. But it changed for the better. My partner moved in, we were with my mum. My partner moved in that day. And COVID lockdown happened not long after, which was probably a blessing in disguise. I got to hang out at home for ages. But yeah, and then it obviously kind of snowballed. It was my whole life changed. There was things I had never really thought about that I had to think about. I had to consider, I did IVF because obviously I was about to go into, 6 months of chemotherapy, which would have an effect on my ovaries and things like that. So yeah, at that point I became a crazy statistic. It's 1 in 1,567 people at my age would ever be diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. And I had all the genetic testing. It's not a hormonal based cancer. It's really aggressive.
What's the triple negative piece?
Triple negative, it's just like it's not estrogen, progesterone, like the hormones don't affect it. Generally, it's genetic. I don't have the genetic marker for it. I was just incredibly unlucky, which is just crazy. But yeah, that kind of stemmed me into the next six to 12 months of my life and what that looked like.
So you had surgery?
Yeah, I had to have a double mastectomy. I went through the 6 months of chemo. I responded really well to that, but there was obviously no guarantees unless I had to have, the double mastectomy to make my risk of recurrence as little as possible. So I went through with that. That was kind of a no-brainer.
Mentally that was not a hard decision to make.
I always say, like, the treatment side of things, it felt easy. Like, although I was at times completely debilitated, and I always say, like, my brain is protecting me from, what I went through at that time. I look back and I was like, oh, it was okay. It wasn't that bad,
Even telling this story, Paige, is so nonchalant about it.
But, I mean, it was easy. That was I had structure at that point. Everything else was so uncertain. I didn't know whether I'd come out the other side. I didn't know what my life would look like at the end of it. But what I had certainty was that I turned up to the hospital every, Wednesday, and I had my treatment, and I went home and I saw the doctor on this day and whatever. And that was kind of what kept me going. And COVID was probably a blessing in disguise. I got to stay home, and I was probably protected during that time a lot more than I would have been otherwise.
But if you're having chemo through COVID, that's also a recipe for a significant disaster because your immune system's completely zero through the chemo.
Yeah, and I did have an experience where I ended up in the COVID ward. I got really, really unwell, and I was really unwell. I had to go to emergency. They rushed me straight in, and I was in the COVID ward for like 2 days on a drip, getting blood transfusions. Didn't end up having COVID, but it was just kind of, the state that my body was in when everyone was sick around me. And it was crazy, but here we are.
And the chemo itself through that period, because it's a double mastectomy plus the chemo and you had radiation?
I was lucky not to have radiation, yeah.
Okay. But that's still an awful amount of things that you need to endure at 24.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Are you just focusing on, as you said, the small, like what's just in front of your face right now rather than the bigger picture?
I think I had to. But I'm always, like, I don't know, I'm pretty lucky. I've never been someone who has felt like the world is closing in around me. I'm just like, this is what it is. We just got to get through it, and we got to do the next thing and keep going. All I was worried about was my family and how they felt about me and that they'd be okay. My dad and my mum probably found it the hardest, and my dad really struggled. My sister, she's just like, let's go, let's fine. She's better than I am. But it was just one day at a time, and I knew that I would be okay.
How were you talking to yourself throughout it?
Probably just trying to reaffirm the fact I tried not to think too far ahead. I felt crap at the time, and I was like, I feel crap at the time. I feel shit right now. I need to try and make myself feel better right now. And then, the next thing would come, and I'd be like, all right, let's just get on with this. I'd try and look out for the little things that I could enjoy. Like, me and my partner would always get up at 5:30. We'd go get a coffee from the takeaway coffee shop, and we'd go watch the sunrise. And that was something so precious that I will always hold with me, that I could do that during that time. And those are the things that got me through.
And how do you reflect now, looking back, other than playing it down?
It's not something I hold with me every day. Like, even like, to be honest, this is probably the first time I've like outwardly spoken about it this much. But there is an undertone of my life which has completely changed. And that's kind of how I live my life now. It's not that I reflect on it every day, like I need to do this because I went through this. It's just, life isn't that bad. We will keep going, and just look after yourself and control what you can control. And that's what I try and do these days. Like, I put myself in good situations. I try and eat the best that I can. I move every day. I think as healthy as I can. And that's all you can really do, because like my situation shows that it doesn't discriminate. I was healthy. I was fit. I was young. I didn't have genetic markers, and it happened to me anyway. And I think that's something people need to remember.
Do you think you're better off because of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always someone who's like, everything happens for a reason. That it does. And, I grew a lot closer with my family. I experienced a lot of things. I look back on, I probably hold myself differently through life now that I wouldn't have if I didn't experience this. And I think I probably have I've always been an empathetic person, but I have a lot more empathy for, everyone's going through something or has had something in their life before. You just have to be kind, and you just have to live life as much as you can, and just enjoy what you do every day, And I have those conversations with my friends who are like, and I understand that we all feel and react, and it's all relative to us, and I'm empathetic to that point. But until you've actually been through something, and I probably sometimes struggle sometimes when I have those conversations with people where I'm like, you have no idea, it's really not that bad. Like, it's going to be okay. You just got to keep going. Yeah.
It is relative though.
Yeah.
Everyone's trauma is their
Absolutely.
own, and you can't reflect. It's very hard to reflect on your own situation unless you've got something that you've experienced yourself to compare. How do you hold yourself now as a result?
I try and be as healthy as possible, as caring as possible. I try and create the most opportunistic situations for myself and everyone around me, because I know that I would hate this to happen to the people I care about, and I try and move through life reminding everyone around me that, it's all good. We're so lucky to be here. We're so lucky to do what we do. And I suppose I just try and enjoy everything I do. And that's why I got into the gym, because I was like, if I do this for the rest of my life, I know I'm doing something well for myself and for the people around me. And I will always wake up and be like, I'm so lucky to do this.
You're so inspiring. It is an incredible story. But not just I learned about that after the fact, after I walked into your gym, and after I was so impressed and to go, man, this is such an incredible operation of business in a saturated industry.
Yeah.
Where it's very difficult to set yourself apart. And this is miles ahead of anything. And then to have learnt what you have gone through in the health side of things. And despite that, you've been able to find the success and surround yourself with really good people to help you achieve what you're wanting to achieve. For the people out there that are dealing with their own issues, and everyone's got them, but what's the takeaway here? What are the lessons here that people can take to say, okay, this has happened, but I've got it's looking forward, and what can I do now with my life despite the fact that this has happened to me?
I saw a quote that someone I know posted just recently, and it was that when we're well, we have thousands of problems, but when we're unwell, we only have one. And I think that's like a big takeaway for everyone. It's like, in this society, like, everything's wrong, everything's a problem. We've got so much pressure on us, but it's like you said, until you have that adversity, you don't really see that bigger picture. But one of my other friends, she sent me a quote, and she said, you've been assigned this mountain to show others that it can be moved. And you can. You just have to get the right people around you. You have to do what's right for yourself. If you aren't thinking in the right train of thought, you need to get help. Because you can get through everything if you've got the right support systems in place. If you want to take the step to look after yourself and do better, and ask for help when you need it. Because at the other side, there's like so much to learn. And you will always be grateful for just going that one more day or like one more hour to try and get through the other side.
When you're in the middle of chemo post-op, you are thinking day to day.
Yeah.
At what point in that whole journey do you then reflect and go, I'm so thankful for that experience?
It probably wasn't really until a year, 2 years down the track.
Yeah.
And like, to be honest, probably not even now, until now. Like, I've always been at the point where I'm like, I've not liked going to work previously or whatever. And I'm like, it's okay though. Like, I live a really good life. I live by the beach, I have a house, I have a dog, whatever it is. But it's probably not really been until now where I can see the success around me that I can look back and be like, I wouldn't have been here unless I went through that. And I genuinely don't think that I would be. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's such a wonderful answer, because I think people who are going through things at the time of them going through it, it's really difficult to see the forest from the trees. But to have, I guess, this, you might not be able to see it now in terms of when you're in the middle of it or in the well, but to have some level of hope, an ounce of hope that at some point you'll reflect and go, this is going to be good for me.
Yeah.
You don't have to, sing from the trees about how great this terrible situation is, but to have faith.
Yeah, I think you have to. Everything happens for a reason. You won't figure it out at the time or maybe even soon after, but eventually you'll be like, I grew because of that, or all these opportunities came from that really crappy situation. It is what it is.
We're talking about self-help. We're talking about self-care this week. What are your thoughts on the topic? Self-care
is super important, but I'm very realistic in what self-care looks like at this phase of my life, obviously being in a new business. And it's more now for me about the environment I place myself in, placing myself in environments that get the best out of me, allow me to grow, connect, look after my mental and physical health. And that's my kind of form on self-care. But like I've said, I'm probably lucky to have those pillars of self-care anyway because of what I went through. I eat well, I move, I try and get out of the house, I connect and talk to those around me. But self-care looks different to everyone, and that's kind of what it looks like for me.
Yeah, right. Do you have any, in terms of the mental side of things? Is it just that connection with others?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm very lucky that I've never really struggled with anything like that. But I think it also comes down to the fact that, I grew up in a supportive household. My mum, my sister, my dad, everyone around me, I've never felt like I couldn't talk to them or that they weren't going to be there for me, which I think, obviously speaks to having a good support network around you to make sure that you are in a good frame of mind and your mental health is being looked after. But, in saying that, I did have times where I spoke to psychologists throughout my treatment journey, just I suppose maybe to understand why me or, whatever at the time. But I think, talking about it, communication is super important to whatever outlet that looks like for you.
How did you have to play the victim for long?
I tried not to ever.
Yeah, I can't imagine that's not you, right?
I did start a blog when I was going through treatment. It was more of an outlet for me to get what was in my head. And look, that probably speaks back to the mental health side of things. That was how I kind of coped. I got it out because at the time when I was looking at 24-year-olds diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, there's nothing. There's no one online who's been through it, nothing. So you kind of have to then create your own narrative around, is this normal? What does it look like? So I was like, if I can do this, I can get it out of my head. And I can also maybe be a form of support for another 24-year-old who comes along my blog and finds it and has been through this and then has been through that. And yeah.
I'm super impressed. And so it's such an inspiring story, whether or not you see it for what it is yet. And I'm with you as well in the sense that you don't often look backwards.
No.
You just look what's going forward. But Paige, you've got everything in front of you in terms of what you can achieve. And I really appreciate your time sharing that story and going into detail.
Thank you.
I know it's probably not something that you do share too often.
No, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Final 5 questions. What does, and Codes will attest, he wants a short answer.
Okay.
What does success mean to you?
the people that you have around you.
What does happiness mean to you?
Probably much the same.
Yeah.
Mm.
A piece of advice that you would give from all of your experiences?
Just keep going. You can move mountains. That would be it. You can do it. Whatever you set your mind to.
Your morning routine.
My morning
Your
routine.
normal morning routine.
Am I being honest?
Yeah.
Okay. I wake up, roll out of bed, brush my teeth, and drive to the gym.
Yeah.
And then get my coffee and get stuck into the day.
Okay.
Train
Yeah.
with the people. Yeah.
And then finally, a guest who you would recommend for us to have on the show,
Mm-hmm.
either within your circle or someone fanciful.
You've already had Bart on here.
He's inspiring.
He is incredible.
My goodness.
He's amazing. Lisa Crichton.
Okay.
She was my breast surgeon. She's incredible.
Okay.
She does amazing work on the coast. I think she's an amazing woman.
Oh, great shout.
Mm,
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Paige.
thank you.
Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're in the gym, turn to the person next to you and let them know all about the show, because stories like Paige's deserve to be heard. If her journey sparked something in you, we'd love to hear about it. Join our Facebook group to share your thoughts, connect with others, or just let us know what hit home. Drop a comment, join the chat, or simply scroll through for more inspiring conversations. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, peace.